The penumbral spire rotated lazily against the tidally locked horizon of Nix Eden, its crystalline structure catching both the eternal sunset of the light side and the perpetual darkness of the night hemisphere. Noah Archer adjusted his medical scanner for the third time, trying to ignore the nervous energy crackling through the assembly hall. Around him, delegates from 47 different species mingled in carefully choreographed diplomatic clusters, their translators humming with multilingual chatter. "Remember," his supervisor had said that morning, "the bond accords aren't just about partnerships. They're about proving we can build lasting peace through understanding." Noah had nodded dutifully, but his hand had unconsciously moved to the memorial pin on his collar, a small silver star for his sister Emma, lost in the riots 3 years ago when anti-alien sentiment had turned violent in the outer colonies. He was here for peace, yes, but also for answers. The investigation had traced the riot's instigators to off-world connections, possibly even to species participating in today's ceremony. The grand hall of the spire was divided by a subtle gradient of light, transitioning from the brilliant illumination favored by humans and other diurnal species to the comfortable shadows preferred by the nocturni and other night dwellers. The architecture itself was a statement of unity, or at least the attempt at it. "Attention, delegates!" The ceremonial AI's voice resonated through the hall. "The bond accord matching ceremony will commence in 5 minutes. Please ensure your biometric profiles are active." Noah watched as his colleagues received their matches with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Sarah, from the Agricultural Division, was paired with a crystalline resonant, who communicated through harmonics, a solid match for someone working in bioacoustic crop enhancement. Jorge from Engineering got matched with a four-armed mechanist whose species had revolutionized zero-G construction. Even Thompson from Security, who had loudly complained about diplomatic babysitting duty, seemed pleased with his match to a warrior poet from the Martial Concordance. "Noah Archer," the AI announced, and he stepped forward, straightening his medical liaison uniform. "Your optimal partnership has been determined through comprehensive psychosocial analysis, genetic compatibility assessment, and diplomatic necessity algorithms." He held his breath. Maybe someone from the healer's synthesis, or perhaps a researcher from the cognitive collective. Someone who could help him understand the biological weapons that had triggered the riots, turning peaceful protesters into mindless aggressors. "Your designated partner is Seraphine Kale of the Nocturni Sovereign Entity." A murmur ran through the human delegation. The Nocturni. They were one of the most reclusive species in the galaxy, their vampiric biology making them objects of fear and fascination in equal measure. But before Noah could process this information, the ceiling of the ceremonial hall exploded in a shower of reinforced glass. A figure in midnight blue tactical gear dropped through the breach, landing in a perfect crouch that sent delegates scattering. She rose slowly, revealing features that were almost human, except for the subtle luminescence of her pale skin and eyes that shifted from silver to deep crimson. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and there was something wild about her movements, too fluid, too predatory. "I claim sanctuary under Article 7 of the Bond Accords," she announced, her voice carrying despite the chaos. "I am Seraphine Kale, and I require immediate diplomatic protection." Security forces from 3 different species converged on her position, but she held up a datapad that projected the Bond Accord seal. "I've been matched. Check your records." Noah found himself moving forward without thinking, his medical instincts overriding his shock. "She's bleeding," he said, pointing to the dark stain spreading across her shoulder. "Whatever else is happening, she needs medical attention." "Stay back, human," a Nocturni honor guard growled, materializing from the shadows. "This is an internal matter." "Actually," Sarah said, her eyes locking onto Noah's, "it's not. According to your own laws, a matched pair cannot be separated during the initial bonding period. Isn't that right? Partner, The next few minutes were a blur of bureaucratic chaos. Noah found himself standing next to the injured Nocturne woman, while officials from multiple species argued about jurisdiction, sanctuary protocols, and the validity of dramatic entrances. Through it all, Sarah stood perfectly still, except for the slight tremor in her left hand, the only sign of whatever had driven her to crash the ceremony. "You're losing blood," Noah said quietly, pulling out his medical scanner. "Whatever's happening, you won't win any arguments if you pass out." She glanced at him, and for a moment, the wild edge in her expression softened. "Practical. I like that." She allowed him to run the scanner over her wound. "Though I should warn you, Doctor." "I'm not a doctor. Medical liaison. Former emergency medical technician." "Even better. You know field medicine." She winced as he applied a temporary seal to the wound. "I should warn you, EMT Noah Archer, that accepting this match will make you a target. There are those who very much don't want me alive to testify at this conference." "Testify about what?" Her smile was sharp enough to reveal the subtle points of her canines. "About who's been turning my people into monsters. About the artificial hunger that's been spreading through the night districts. About the connection between the bioweapons used on my world and the ones that killed your sister." Noah's hand froze on the medical seal. "How do you—" "Attention." The ceremonial AI's voice cut through the chaos with enforced calm. "The match between Noah Archer and Seraphine Kale has been verified and recorded, according to Bond Accord regulations. Any attempt to separate a newly matched pair during the initial adjustment period is considered an act of diplomatic aggression." High Prelate Kareth pushed through the crowd, his ancient features twisted with rage. The religious leader of the Nocturne traditionalists looked like he had stepped out of a nightmare, tall, gaunt, with skin so pale it was nearly translucent, and eyes that burned with fanatic fervor. "This is blasphemy," he hissed. "A daughter of night bonding with a daywalker. You disgrace our entire species." "Kyle." "What disgusts our species," Sarah shot back, "is turning a blind eye while our poor are experimented on, while our children succumb to artificial hunger that drives them mad. You knew about the Crimson Lattice operations in the Shadow Districts, and you did nothing. Because separation is our salvation." Kareth's voice rose to evangelical heights. "Every contact with other species pollutes our essence. The hunger you speak of is divine punishment for our weakness in joining these accords." Noah felt the tension in the room ratchet up another notch. Several of the human delegates were backing away, hands moving toward concealed weapons. The other species were forming defensive clusters. This was exactly how the riots had started: fear, accusation, and the promise of violence. "With respect, High Prelate," Noah said, stepping forward and surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. "If there's a biological weapon affecting your people, then it's a medical crisis, not a theological one. And medical crises don't care about species boundaries. What affects one of us could affect all of us." Kareth's burning gaze turned to him. "You dare speak of our affairs, human. Your kind who treats us like monsters from your ancient myths. My kind who just matched with one of yours through a process you agreed to," Noah countered. "Which makes her affairs my affairs, according to your own laws." The crowd stirred uneasily. Media drones circled overhead, broadcasting the confrontation across the galaxy. Noah was acutely aware that whatever happened in the next few moments would set the tone for the entire Harmony Conference. Sarah moved closer to him, and he caught a scent like copper and starlight. "You don't know what you're signing up for," she murmured. "Someone killed my sister with a bioweapon that turned peaceful protesters into killers," he replied, just as quietly. "If you have answers, then I'm already signed up." She studied him for a long moment, then turned back to the crowd. "I formally accept this bond match," she announced, "and I request immediate convening of the medical committee to present evidence of the Crimson Lattice's crimes against sentient beings." You have no evidence, Kareth snarled. Only the delusions of a disgraced enforcer who... Sarah pulled out a bio-locked data cylinder. Every victim, every altered genome, every shipment of the hunger virus tracked back to its source. The evidence that someone has been deliberately destabilizing both our worlds to prevent this conference from succeeding. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, chaos erupted as delegates began shouting questions, accusations, and demands. Security forces moved to establish order, and Noah found himself in the eye of the storm, standing next to a woman he'd just met, who might either be his key to justice or his path to destruction. "We should go," Sarah said, swaying slightly. The wound was worse than she'd let on. "The prelate's supporters won't let this stand, and whoever's behind the lattice will want that data cylinder before I can present it." Noah made a decision that would have seemed insane an hour ago. "My quarters are in the medical section, neutral territory, heavy security, and fully equipped treatment facilities. Lead the way, partner." Her smile was weaker now, but genuine. "And Noah, thank you for not running when I crashed through your ceiling." "The day's still young," he replied, surprising himself with the attempt at humor. As he guided her through the crowd, fielding questions from colleagues and avoiding the glares from Kareth's supporters, Noah couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn into uncharted territory. The Bond Accords were supposed to be about building bridges between species. He just hadn't expected his bridge to start with shattered glass and end with a conspiracy that might go to the heart of both their governments. The medical section of the spire was a marvel of multi-species engineering. Treatment bays could adjust atmosphere, gravity, and lighting to accommodate any known physiology. Noah guided Sarah to a private suite, activating the privacy seals and medical protocols. "The wound's deeper than I thought," he said, helping her onto the diagnostic bed. "I need to..." "You need to understand nocturne physiology first," she interrupted. "We're not vampires in the way your myths describe. We're symbiotic. Our bodies require specific proteins found in blood. Yes, but it's a controlled process. A partnership. The artificial hunger you mentioned." Her face darkened. "Turns that partnership into parasitism. Overrides our conscious control. Triggers feeding frenzies. Someone engineered it to make us into the monsters your people already think we are." Noah pulled up the medical database, cross-referencing nocturne biology with the symptoms she described. The protein synthesis pathway. If someone introduced a retrovirus that altered the receptor sites. "You understand quickly." She watched him work with those unusual eyes. "Your sister's death wasn't random, was it?" Emma was a journalist. She'd been investigating rumors of off-world weapons being tested in the outer colonies. The official report said the riot was spontaneous, triggered by anti-alien protests. But the victims, they showed signs of extreme neurochemical alteration, artificial rage, loss of higher brain function, hyper-focus on perceived threats. "The same base technology," Sarah confirmed. "Refined for different species. Make humans angry enough to kill. Make Nocturne hungry enough to feed without consent. Create enough chaos, and the Bond Accords fall apart. Who benefits from that?" She was quiet for a moment as he worked on her wound, the medical nanites knitting flesh back together under his guidance. "Start with who profits from conflict. Security corporations who get contracts when peace fails. Weapons manufacturers who need field tests. Political factions on both sides who prefer isolation to integration. That's a long list of suspects. Which is why I need to present this evidence properly, publicly. Make it impossible to ignore or cover up." She gestured to the data cylinder. 3 years of investigation. Dozens of victims who trusted me with their stories. Your sister's name is in there too, along with the others from the colony riots. Noah's hands stilled. "You investigated Emma's death. I investigate patterns. A human journalist getting close to the truth. A Nocturne enforcer asking the wrong questions. We were working toward the same revelation from different angles. Her voice grew soft. I'm sorry I couldn't prevent what happened to her. The medical suite's door chimed. Mr. Archer, a familiar voice called. It's Dr. Mira Halden. I heard about the unusual circumstances of your matching. May I come in? Noah looked at Sarah, who nodded slightly. He released the privacy seal. Dr. Halden entered. Her silver hair pulled back in its characteristic bun. Her expression a mixture of concern and professional interest. As the head of the human delegation's medical team and Noah's longtime mentor, she had been instrumental in getting him this position. Well, she said, taking in the scene. This is certainly not how I expected your first day to go. Her eyes lingered on Sarah. Miss Kale, your reputation precedes you. All bad, I'm sure, Sarah replied. On the contrary, your work exposing the trafficking rings in the outer systems saved hundreds of lives. Though your methods were unorthodox. Crashing through skylights is becoming a pattern, Noah said, trying to lighten the mood. Dr. Halden didn't smile. The High Prelate is demanding your immediate return, Miss Kale. He's invoking religious law, claiming you violated sacred trust by bonding with an outsider. Religious law doesn't supersede the Accords, Sarah countered. No, but it can make things complicated. Noah, are you certain about this? The matching algorithm isn't perfect. You could request a review, claim coercion given the dramatic circumstances. Noah met his mentor's eyes. She has information about Emma's death, about the bioweapons. If there's even a chance of getting justice. Justice. Dr. Halden's expression was unreadable. A dangerous word in diplomatic circles. Sometimes peace requires compromise, accepting that not all wrongs can be righted. Is that what you'd tell the victims' families? Sarah asked sharply. I'd tell them that preventing future victims sometimes means making difficult choices about the past. The doctor moved to check Sarah's wound, her manner professional but distant. The conference starts in 48 hours. Whatever evidence you have, it needs to be presented through proper channels. Otherwise, you risk turning this into a circus that helps no one. With respect, Doctor, Sarah said, proper channels are how the Lattice operated for 3 years without interference. Sometimes a circus is exactly what's needed to drag shadows into the light. Dr. Halden finished her examination. The wound is healing well. Noah's treatment was exemplary, as always. She turned to leave, then paused. Be careful, both of you. The forces that benefit from chaos won't hesitate to create more of it. And Noah, remember that the living matter more than the dead. After she left, the room felt smaller, charged with unspoken implications. She's wrong, Noah said quietly. The dead matter because they can't speak for themselves anymore. Sarah reached out, her cool fingers brushing his hand. That's why I chose you. Why I crashed your nice, orderly ceremony. The algorithm didn't match us. Noah, I hacked it. I needed someone who understood loss but hadn't been broken by it. Someone medical enough to understand the evidence but human enough to make others care. He should have been angry at the manipulation. Instead, he found himself oddly impressed. So all of this was planned. Everything except getting shot on the way in. That was just bad timing. She tried to sit up, winced. The prelate's more zealous followers don't appreciate my investigation. They see integration with other species as a betrayal of our pure nature. They'd rather we remain monsters in the dark than equals in the light. And someone's feeding that fear, literally, with the hunger virus. Exactly. Create the problem. Benefit from the reaction. Classic destabilization tactics. She pulled out a second device. This one, a secure communicator. I have allies in the shadow districts. Victims who survived the hunger. Families who lost loved ones. They're ready to testify. But they need protection. Medical support. the kind of resources a human delegation member could provide. Noah understood the full scope of what she was asking. It wasn't just about being matched partners for diplomatic show. She needed him to be a bridge between worlds, to use his position to protect her investigation and give voice to victims his own people might fear or dismiss. "The medical committee meets tomorrow," he said. "Emergency session to discuss multi-species health threats. If we present your evidence there." "It's a start, but we'll need more than data. We need witnesses, living proof of what's being done." She pulled up a hollow map of the station. "There's a survivor in the lower district, former teacher, infected 8 months ago. She's managed to control the hunger through meditation and careful feeding schedules. But she's evidence that the virus can be fought. If we could bring her to testify." "The lower districts aren't exactly friendly to humans. They're not friendly to anyone right now. Fear makes everyone suspicious." She met his eyes. "But a human and a nocturne working together, that sends a message. Maybe one strong enough to cut through the fear." Noah checked the time. 6 hours until the next committee meeting. 42 hours until the main conference. A narrow window to expose a conspiracy that had been years in the making. "We'll need backup," he said. "Medical supplies, security escort, someone to document everything. I have contacts. People who've been waiting for a chance to tell their stories. The question is whether you're ready for what we might find down there." He thought of Emma, of her last message before the riots. The truth is darker than we imagined, but someone needs to shine a light. "I'm ready," he said. Sarah smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "Then let's go catch some monsters. The real ones. Not the ones they want us to be." As they prepared to leave the medical suite, Noah caught his reflection in the polished wall. Same face, same medical uniform. But something fundamental had shifted. This morning, he'd been a liaison, a diplomatic functionary hoping to build bridges through careful negotiation and mutual understanding. Now he was something else, an investigator, a protector, possibly a target. His comm unit buzzed with messages, colleagues expressing concern, supervisors demanding explanations, media requests for interviews about his dramatic matching. He silenced them all. The time for proper channels and diplomatic niceties had passed the moment Sarah crashed through that ceiling. "One more thing," Sarah said as they reached the door. "The hunger virus doesn't just affect Nocturne. We've found traces of adapted versions in other species. If the lattice achieves full deployment, every species at the conference could be compromised," Noah finished. "Turn the Peace Summit into a massacre. Which is why we have less than 48 hours to stop them." She checked her weapon, a sleek energy pistol, designed for non-lethal suppression. "Welcome to the shadows, partner. Try not to die on your first day." Despite everything, Noah found himself almost smiling. "I'll do my best. After all, someone needs to keep you from crashing through any more ceilings." They left the medical suite together, an unlikely pair united by shared loss and the determination to prevent others from suffering the same fate. The penumbral spire continued its rotation, light and shadow dancing across its surface, unaware that in its depths, two people were about to challenge the darkness that threatened to consume them all. The conspiracy that had claimed his sister's life was larger than he'd imagined, reaching across species and star systems. But for the first time since Emma's death, Noah felt like he was moving toward answers instead of away from the pain. Even if those answers came with a wild alien vampire woman who had literally dropped into his life. The Bond Accords were supposed to create lasting partnerships between species. Noah just hadn't expected his to begin with breaking all the rules. Chapter 2. Into the Shadow Districts. The descent into the lower districts of Penumbral Spire was like traveling between worlds. The polished corridors and ambient lighting of the diplomatic quarters gave way to industrial passages where pipes sweated condensation and the air tasted of recycled oxygen and desperation. Noah adjusted his medical pack, hyper-aware of how his clean uniform marked him as an outsider. "Stay close," Sarah murmured, her hand resting on his arm. "The transition zones are where trouble likes to hunt." She had changed into civilian clothes, worn synthetic leather that had seen better decades. Her midnight blue enforcer gear hidden beneath a long coat. In the dim lighting, her luminescent skin was less noticeable, though her fluid movements still betrayed her as something other than human. "You said you had contacts down here," Noah said, stepping over a puddle of something he didn't want to identify. "Had" is the operative word. The lattice has been thorough in silencing witnesses. She guided him around a corner where graffiti in multiple languages proclaimed everything from death to the daywalkers to hunger is holy. But there are survivors. People who've learned to manage the artificial hunger. They're our best hope for proving this isn't natural. The Shadow District proper began at sublevel 30. Here, the station's rotation created pockets of perpetual twilight, perfect for species that couldn't tolerate full light or complete darkness. It should have been a thriving community. Instead, Noah saw boarded shops, makeshift barricades, and the hollow eyes of beings who'd learned to fear their own neighbors. There, Sarah pointed to a converted cargo bay. A faded sign read, "Mercy's School," in universal script. Anara Vey, former educator, infected 8 months ago during a lattice raid on a protest meeting. She was protesting against the segregation policies Kareth's faction keeps pushing. Anara believed in integration, taught mixed-species classes, made her a perfect target for someone wanting to discredit the moderate movement. They approached carefully. Noah noticed the subtle security measures, UV strips that would reveal Nocturne in full hunger state. Bioscanners, checking for weapons or pathogens. Someone had turned this school into a fortress. The door opened before they could knock. A woman stood there, neither fully human nor completely Nocturne, but something in between. Her skin had the faint luminescence of Sarah's people, but her features retained human warmth. Mixed heritage, Noah realized, even rarer than pure Nocturne. "Sarah," Anara said, her voice carrying exhaustion and determination in equal measure. "I told you not to come back. It's not safe." "Nowhere is safe. That's why we need to act." Sarah gestured to Noah. "This is the human from the matching ceremony. The feeds are full of your dramatic entrance." Anara studied Noah with eyes that shifted between brown and silver. "A medical liaison. Interesting choice." "May we come in?" Noah asked. "I'd like to understand what happened to you. The infection. How you've managed it. With your permission. I could run some scans. Document your condition for the medical committee." Anara hesitated, then stepped aside. "Quickly. The patrols have been increasing." The interior of the school was a contradiction. Cheerful educational posters covered the walls, showing various species working together, while emergency supplies and medical equipment occupied every corner. A dozen beings of various species sat in a circle. Some obviously struggling with symptoms. Noah was beginning to recognize the subtle tremor of suppressed hunger. The way they avoided looking directly at anyone's throat. "My students," Anara explained. "Or what's left of them. When the hunger virus hit our district, the authorities wanted to quarantine us, permanently, so we created our own sanctuary." Noah pulled out his scanner, and Anara nodded permission. As he worked, she continued talking. "It started at a peaceful demonstration. We were protesting the new segregation laws, asking for equal access to medical facilities. Then, someone released an aerosol. Within minutes, every Nocturne in the crowd was..." She paused, searching for words. "Hungry. Not normal hunger. Something that bypassed every cultural inhibition, every learned behavior." The scanner's results made Noah's stomach turn. The virus had rewritten entire sections of her genetic code, specifically targeting the regions that controlled feeding behaviors and social bonding. "This is sophisticated," he said, Whoever designed this understood nocturne biology at a molecular level. Which narrows the suspect list, Sarah added grimly. Not many labs have that capability. How do you control it? Noah asked Inara. The hunger, discipline, meditation, and this. She showed them a small device attached to her wrist. Black market neural inhibitor. Dampens the worst of the urges. But it's killing me slowly. The virus fights back. You see, evolves. What worked last month barely helps now. One of the students, a young nocturne who couldn't have been more than 16 standard years, suddenly convulsed. His eyes flared bright red, and he lunged toward a human student beside him. Inara moved faster than Noah could track, intercepting and restraining the boy with practiced efficiency. Chris, breathe, she commanded. Remember your anchor. Remember who you are. The boy struggled against her grip, fangs extended, completely lost to the artificial hunger. Noah grabbed a sedative from his kit, but Sarah stopped him. Wait, she said. Watch. Inara began to sing. It wasn't in any language Noah recognized, but the melody was hauntingly beautiful. Gradually, the boy's struggles ceased. His eyes faded from red to silver, to their normal amber. He collapsed against Inara, sobbing. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I could see everything, but I couldn't stop. It's not your fault, Inara soothed. Never your fault. Noah documented everything, his medical scanner recording biological data that contradicted half of what humanity thought they knew about Nocturne. The song, How Does It Work? Resonance, Inara explained, helping Chris back to his seat. Nocturne evolution is tied to sound as much as blood. Certain frequencies can override the virus temporarily, but it requires a connection between singer and listener. Trust. The very thing the virus is designed to destroy. We need to get you to the medical committee, Noah said. This isn't just evidence of the virus. It's proof that it can be fought without violence. I can't leave them, Inara gestured to her students. If the authorities find this place while I'm gone, then we bring the committee here, Sarah decided. Document everything. Transmit it live. Make it impossible to ignore. A proximity alarm chimed. Inara's expression went flat. Patrol! Everyone to the safe room, now. The students moved with practiced efficiency, helping each other to a reinforced chamber at the back of the school. Noah noticed how the humans helped the Nocturne, how species that should fear each other worked in perfect coordination. It was everything the Bond Accords promised, achieved through shared suffering rather than diplomatic negotiation. You two should leave, Inara said. If they find outsiders here. The door exploded inward. Security forces in unmarked armor poured in, weapons raised. Not station security. Noah realized. These were private contractors, the kind that operated in legal gray areas where corporate interests trumped governmental authority. Nobody move, the lead soldier commanded through a voice modulator. By order of the Public Safety Commission, this illegal gathering is disbanded. All infected individuals will be relocated to proper containment facilities. You mean death camps, Sarah snarled, positioning herself between the soldiers and the safe room. Seraphine Kale. The leader's tone suggested recognition. You're a long way from your jurisdiction. Enforcer. Or should I say, former enforcer. I heard you lost your badge when you started asking inconvenient questions. Just like you lost your soul when you started taking lattice money, she shot back. Noah stepped forward, holding up his diplomatic credentials. I'm Medical Liaison, Noah Archer of the Earth Delegation. These people are under medical observation as part of an official investigation into the hunger virus. Any interference with... The rifle butt caught him in the stomach, doubling him over. Your jurisdiction ends at sub-level 20. Human. Down here, we maintain order our way. Sarah moved, even prepared for her speed. Noah barely tracked the motion. One soldier went down. Neural stunner twisted from his grip. Another found himself airborne, crashing into his companions. But there were too many, and they were ready for nocturne speed. Shock nets deployed, crackling with electricity designed to overload enhanced nervous systems. Sarah dodged too, but the third caught her shoulder, sending her to one knee. The soldiers closed in. "Stop." Anara emerged from the safe room, her students behind her. The soldiers tensed, weapons tracking multiple targets. "Let them go," Anara continued. "They're outsiders. Take me, but let them go." "Noble," the leader mocked. "But orders are orders. Everyone here gets processed. The infected get relocated. The sympathizers get re-educated. And the troublemakers." He aimed at Sarah. "Get examples made of them." Noah's mind raced. 12 soldiers, armed and armored. Sarah injured. A room full of frightened students. No good options. Unless... "Wait," he called out. "You're making a mistake. Check your orders again. Check who's really paying you." The leader turned. "Excuse me." "The Crimson Lattice. You think you're working for them, but you're not. You're evidence. Expendable evidence." Noah stood slowly, hands visible. "Every action you take is being recorded. Not by us. By them. When this goes public, when the conspiracy is exposed, who do you think takes the fall, the mysterious puppet masters? Or the thugs who actually pulled the triggers?" He could see doubt flickering behind visors. These weren't ideologues like Kareth. They were mercenaries, in it for the money. "He's lying," the leader said, but uncertainty colored his voice. Tell me, when was the last time you had direct contact with your employers? When did you last see a real face instead of encrypted messages and anonymous credit transfers?" Noah pulled out his medical scanner, showing the data he'd collected. "This virus isn't random. It's targeted. Today it's Nocturne. Tomorrow it could be anyone who becomes inconvenient, including soldiers who know too much." One of the soldiers lowered his weapon slightly. "Boss." "Shut up." But the leader was thinking now. "Even if you're right, we have orders." "From ghosts," Sarah added, getting slowly to her feet despite the shock net's residual effects. "From people who won't remember your names when the investigations start. But we will. Every student here will remember who chose to be decent when it mattered." The tension stretched taut. Noah could see fingers on triggers, could feel the violence balanced on a knife's edge. Then Anara began to sing again. The same haunting melody, but this time with words Noah somehow understood despite the alien language. She sang of home, of children learning together regardless of species, of the future they all wanted to build. Several of the students joined in, their voices creating harmonies that seemed to resonate in the bones. One soldier removed his helmet. He was young, maybe early 20s, with augmentation scars suggesting former military. "I've got a kid sister in the upper districts. She's in integrated school. Could this virus spread there? If we don't stop it?" "Yes," Noah said simply. "It's designed to spread fear, break down trust between species. Today, the shadow districts. Tomorrow, anywhere that promotes integration." The soldier looked at his leader. "I didn't sign up to poison kids." "Stand down, Morrison," the leader warned. But Morrison wasn't listening. He moved to stand with the students. No, not this time. It was like dominoes falling. One by one, soldiers lowered weapons, removed helmets, chose humanity over orders, until only the leader remained, his rifle wavering between targets. "You're all dead," he said. "When the Lattice finds out..." Sarah moved again, this time unopposed. The leader's weapon flew from his hands as she swept his legs. He hit the ground hard, and she placed one boot on his chest. "The Lattice just lost their enforcement arm in this district," she said. "You can run back to your handlers, tell them their operation is blown, or you can help us end this before more people die." The leader's hand moved toward a concealed weapon. Noah saw it, shouted a warning, but Inara was faster. Her song changed, becoming something sharp and commanding. The leader convulsed once and went still, not dead, but deeply unconscious. "Sleep of the just," Inara said sadly. "He'll wake in about 6 hours with a massive headache and hopefully some better life choices." Noah looked around the room, students comforting each other, soldiers questioning everything they'd been told, Sarah coordinating with the defectors to secure the area. It was messy and dangerous and completely outside diplomatic protocols. It was also the most honest peace-building he'd witnessed. "We need to move," Sarah said. "That patrol will be missed. And now we have witnesses willing to testify." She looked at the soldiers who'd switched sides. "That is, if you're willing to go on record about who hired you, what your orders were." Morrison nodded. "We've got data cores, encrypted, but they show the payment trails. Might be enough to follow back to source." "Good. Noah, can you—" Sarah swayed, the shock net's effects finally catching up. He caught her before she fell, medical instincts kicking in. "Neural overload. She needs treatment." "There's a clinic," Inara offered. "Dr. Presh. She's understanding about treating people off the books." They organized quickly. Some students would escort the willing soldiers to safe houses where their testimony could be recorded. Others would secure the captured equipment and data. Inara would prepare her own testimony for remote transmission to the medical committee. Noah supported Sarah as they followed Inara's directions deeper into the district. She leaned against him, her usual fluid grace replaced by determined stumbling. "That was incredibly stupid," he told her. "Taking on 12 soldiers alone would have worked if they hadn't had shock nets," she mumbled. "Hate those things." "Your heroic tendencies are going to get you killed. Pot. Meat kettle. You just talked down a kill squad with nothing but words and wild theories." "Evidence-based extrapolation," he corrected. "And I had help. That song of Inara's. Lullaby of the first compact. Every Nocturne child learns it. It's about the first peace between our warring clans. Thousands of years ago." She was quiet for a moment. "The virus takes that away. Takes our music, our connection. Makes us into the monsters others fear. It's not just biological warfare. It's cultural genocide." The clinic was a converted maintenance bay. All exposed pipes and jury-rigged medical equipment. Dr. Presh turned out to be a resident, her crystalline form chiming with concern as she examined Sarah. "Neural shock on top of stim fatigue and an improperly healed wound," she diagnosed, her voice like wind chimes. "What have you been doing to yourself? Enforcer?" "The usual," Sarah said. "Saving the galaxy, one bad decision at a time." As Dr. Presh worked, Noah reviewed the data they'd collected. The virus was more insidious than he'd initially thought. It didn't just trigger hunger. It learned, adapted, evolved to counter whatever treatments or coping mechanisms its victims developed. His communicator buzzed, text only, from a blocked address. "You're digging in the right direction. The medical committee meeting tomorrow, be ready for opposition. They know you have evidence. A friend." He showed it to Sarah. She frowned. "Could be legitimate, could be bait. Either way, we're running out of time. The committee meets in 18 hours. The main conference starts in 36. If we can't present compelling evidence, then Kareth wins. The accords fail. And whoever's behind the lattice gets exactly what they want: species divided, afraid, easy to control." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the clinic's grimy window, Noah saw crowds gathering. Not a mob, something more purposeful. Beings of multiple species, moving together, some carrying makeshift banners. "What's happening?" he asked Dr. Presh. She chimed thoughtfully. "Word spreads. The story of the school. The soldiers who chose conscience over credits. People are tired of being afraid. They're marching to the transit hub, demanding the lockdown be lifted, demanding representation at the conference." "That's suicide," Sarah said. trying to sit up. If Kareth's forces respond, or if someone triggers another virus outbreak in that crowd, then we'd better make sure that doesn't happen. Noah helped her stand. Can you move? Do I have a choice? They left the clinic to find the streets transformed. Where before there had been fear and isolation, now beings moved with purpose. The story of Inara's school had spread, evolved, become something larger. Humans walked beside Nocturni. Resonance harmonized with mechanists. Even a few species Noah couldn't identify had joined the flow. This is what they're afraid of, Sarah said softly. Not our differences, our unity. They joined the crowd, Noah supporting Sarah as they moved. He noticed enforcers shadowing the march, but not interfering. Some looked conflicted. Others seemed almost protective. The word was spreading through official channels too, creating cracks in the rigid structures that kept the districts divided. The transit hub loomed ahead, its massive doors sealed since the quarantine began. Security forces lined the entrance, weapons ready. But the crowd didn't slow. They sang not just Inara's lullaby, but songs from a dozen cultures, weaving together into something unprecedented. The standoff lasted moments that felt like hours. Then the doors opened, not all the way, but enough. A delegation emerged, station officials, medical personnel, even some diplomatic staff Noah recognized from the upper levels. By order of the Emergency Council, one announced, the quarantine is suspended pending full investigation of the so-called hunger virus. Medical teams will be dispatched immediately. Any being showing symptoms will receive treatment, not imprisonment. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Noah felt Sarah tense beside him. Too easy, she muttered. They're giving us what we want. Why? Because public opinion shifted, because they realized the quarantine was making things worse. Or because they need us complacent before tomorrow's committee meeting. She pulled him aside as the crowd surged forward. Think about it. If the virus was designed to spread at the conference, to turn it into a massacre, what better way than to let infected individuals travel freely? The implications hit him cold. They're accelerating their timeline, using our victory against us. We need those data cores Morrison mentioned. We need hard evidence of who's behind this before... An explosion rocked the station, then another. Not at the hub deeper in the district, where they'd left Inara's school. No, Sarah breathed, already moving. They ran against the flow of panicking crowds. Noah's medical pack bouncing as he struggled to keep up with her inhuman speed. The school was ablaze, emergency systems failing to contain fires that burned too hot, too fast. Incendiary charges. Sarah identified. Professional work. Figures emerged from the smoke. Inara's students. Morrison and some of the turned soldiers. But not all. Not nearly all. Inara, Noah asked, already knowing the answer from their faces. She went back, Morrison said, coughing. Said there were encrypted records in her office. Evidence about the early virus tests. The charges went off when she was... Another explosion, smaller but closer. Sarah pulled Noah down as debris whistled overhead. We need to go, she said, now. As they retreated, Noah looked back at the burning school. Inara Vey, who'd taught integration through action, who'd saved her students from their own transformed nature, was gone. But her song lived on in those who'd heard it, spread through the crowds, became part of the station's changing rhythm. They're scared, he said. Whoever's doing this, they're scared enough to show their hand. Good, Sarah said grimly. Scared people make mistakes, and we're going to make sure this is their last one. They disappeared into the chaos of the districts. Two unlikely partners carrying evidence that could save or damn entire species. Behind them, the school burned. Ahead, the committee meeting loomed. And somewhere in between, the puppet masters of the Crimson Lattice prepared their next move in a game whose stakes grew higher with each passing hour. Noah thought of his sister Emma, of her belief that truth mattered more than comfort. He thought of Anara, choosing to save evidence over her own life. The conspiracy that connected their deaths was vast, but it was also vulnerable. Every life it took created witnesses. Every fear it spread created resistance. "Promise me something," he said to Sarah as they navigated the dark passages. "When we find who's behind this, we do it right. Legal, public, no shadows." She was quiet for a long moment. "Even if it means they escape, even if justice delayed means more deaths. Especially then, because the moment we become them, use their methods, we lose the moral authority to create something better." She squeezed his hand, her touch cool but no longer alien. "You're either the wisest human I've met or the most naive." "Why not both?" "Despite everything," she laughed. It was a sound worth fighting for, worth preserving in a galaxy that seemed determined to divide them. They had evidence. They had allies. They had less than 18 hours to prevent a conspiracy from turning a peace conference into a war. It would have to be enough. Chapter 3. The Price of Truth. The safe house Morrison had provided was a converted storage unit in the industrial sector, wedged between a water reclamation plant and a defunct manufacturing facility. Noah sat at a makeshift desk, sorting through the data cores, while Sarah paced like a caged predator. Her injuries from the shock net still affecting her usually fluid movements. 17 hours until the committee meeting," she said for the third time. "We should be moving, not sitting here playing with encryption." "Moving where?" Noah asked, not looking up from his work. "Anara's dead. The school's destroyed. Half our witnesses are too terrified to speak, and the other half are being systematically eliminated." He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion weighing heavy. "Right now, these data cores are our best shot at connecting the lattice to someone with actual authority." She stopped pacing, and he could feel her studying him. "You're angry." "Of course I'm angry." The words came out sharper than intended. "A woman died tonight because she believed in the same things my sister did. Integration, understanding, the radical notion that different species could learn from each other instead of fearing each other. Anara knew the risks. Did she know that saving others from the hunger virus would make her a target? Did she know that teaching children to see past species boundaries was a death sentence?" He pushed back from the desk. "Emma knew. She wrote about it in her last article, the one that never got published. The greatest threat to those who profit from division is proof that unity is possible." Sarah moved closer, her cool hand touching his shoulder. "Tell me about her. Your sister." Noah almost refused. The wound was still too fresh, even after 3 years. But something in Sarah's voice, a genuine desire to understand, rather than simply comfort, made him continue. "Emma was brilliant, stubborn. She had this way of seeing connections others missed. When the first Nocturni refugees arrived in our sector, everyone was terrified. The media played up every incident, every cultural misunderstanding. Emma spent weeks in the refugee camps, learning your language, documenting their stories. That's how she discovered the weapons testing. By accident, initially. She was interviewing a family about their escape from the border conflicts when their child started showing symptoms. Hyperaggression, loss of impulse control. The parents thought it was trauma, but Emma recognized the pattern. She'd seen it before in human veterans exposed to certain combat drugs. He pulled up Emma's encrypted files on his tablet, showing Sarah the investigation that had cost his sister her life. Photos of affected individuals, chemical analyses, shipping manifests that didn't match their contents. She traced it back to a research facility on the edge of human space. Officially, they were developing agricultural enhancers. Unofficially, he gestured at the evidence surrounding them. They were testing the precursors to your hunger virus. Sarah studied the data with the intensity of someone recognizing pieces of their own puzzle. These compounds, I've seen similar structures in the samples from our infected, but adapted, refined. She looked up sharply. Your sister found the prototype, and they killed her for it. Made it look like random violence during the riots. Just another casualty of interspecies tension. His hands clenched. The peace enforcement troops who were supposed to protect the protesters. They arrived 40 minutes late. The surveillance systems that should have recorded everything mysteriously glitched. Everyone was so focused on the human nocturne violence that no one asked why it started in the first place. Except you. I was there, in the medical tent, treating injuries. I saw the first victims, the ones who turned violent. Their symptoms were too uniform, too sudden. Natural mob psychology doesn't work that way. He met her eyes. That's when I knew Emma was right. Someone had turned that protest into a weapons test. Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. We've got movement, 3 vehicles, private security markings. They're sweeping the sector. Sarah was already moving, checking weapons, securing the data cores. How close? 10 minutes, maybe less. They're being thorough. Noah began downloading everything to multiple backup drives. Hands steady, despite the adrenaline spike. 3 years of investigation. Anara's evidence. The defecting soldier's testimony. It all had to be preserved. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the recycling center. Morrison continued. But you'll need to move now. Copy that. Sarah turned to Noah. Leave the originals. Take the backups. If we leave the originals, they'll know exactly what we have. Good. Let them know we're past the point of speculation. She pulled him toward the exit. Besides, I uploaded everything to a dead drop server 20 minutes ago. Even if they get us, the evidence survives. The maintenance tunnel was a nightmare of low ceilings and proximity to the station's waste systems. Noah tried not to think about what was coating the walls as they crawled through darkness, broken only by Sarah's natural luminescence and the faint glow of emergency markers. You know, he said, trying to distract himself from the claustrophobia. When I imagined my first diplomatic assignment, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. No, the recruitment materials didn't mention crawling through sewage while being hunted by corporate death squads. Must have been in the fine print. She laughed softly, the sound echoing strangely in the confined space. You're handling this well for a medical liaison. I was an EMT for 6 years before joining the diplomatic corps. You learn to compartmentalize. React now. Process later. He paused as they reached a junction. Though usually my emergencies didn't involve vampire alien partners and galaxy-spanning conspiracies. Just your average Earth emergencies, then. Gravitational accidents, atmospheric suit failures, the occasional bar fight between asteroid miners. Simple things. They took the left tunnel at her gesture. What about you? How does someone go from nocturne enforcer to conspiracy investigator? She was quiet long enough that he thought she wouldn't answer. When she spoke, her voice carried weight. My mother was a traditionalist, believed in the old ways, the isolated ways. Keep to the shadows. Feed only within consent contracts. Never trust the daywalkers. She died believing that. What changed your mind? She did. On her deathbed. She told me the truth. That she'd fallen in love with a human traitor decades ago. That she'd hidden it, denied it. Let fear of judgment destroy something beautiful. Sarah's luminescence dimmed slightly. She said the greatest tragedy wasn't that our species were different, but that we let those differences matter more than what we could share. They emerged from the tunnel into a vast recycling chamber where the station's waste was sorted and processed. The smell was overwhelming, but it was cover. No security sweep would look for them here. So you became an enforcer. To build bridges. To prove that Nocturne could serve alongside other species. That we were more than our reputation. Her expression hardened. Then I started finding the bodies. Nocturne who'd gone mad with hunger. Humans who'd been drained. Always in ways that reinforced the worst stereotypes. Too perfect. Too convenient. And you started investigating? And I started asking questions that made powerful people uncomfortable. Kareth stripped my badge, called me a traitor to my species. The human authorities labeled me a troublemaker. But the pattern was clear once I looked past the propaganda. They made their way through the recycling center, Noah's medical scanner, helping them avoid the automated systems. In the distance, alarm klaxons suggested their pursuers had found the safe house. 15 hours, Noah noted. We need somewhere secure to analyze the data. Prepare for the committee. I know a place, but you're not going to like it. She was right. The place turned out to be a decommissioned medical facility on the very edge of the Night District, where the eternal darkness of Nix Eden's shadow hemisphere created pockets of absolute void. The building was officially condemned, its halls empty, except for the echo of their footsteps and the whisper of ventilation systems that shouldn't still be running. Why here? Noah asked, though part of him already suspected. This is where they did the early tests. Before the hunger virus was refined. Before they learned to make it contagious. She led him through corridors that showed signs of hasty abandonment, overturned equipment, scattered files, dark stains on the floors that his mind refused to analyze. I've been documenting everything, but I needed someone who understood the medical aspects. Someone who could translate the horror into evidence a committee would accept. They reached what had been the primary laboratory. Sarah had transformed it into investigation center walls, covered with victim photos, timelines, chemical analyses. At the center, a holographic display showed the virus in 3 dimensions, its structure elegant in its malevolence. My God, Noah breathed, moving closer to study it. The protein folding alone. This would take years of dedicated research. Or access to very specific genetic databases. She pulled up another display. Every victim shows markers indicating their DNA was already on file. Medical records, employment screenings, even voluntary genetic heritage tests. Someone used our own transparency against us. Noah cross-referenced the data with what he'd learned from Emma's research. The patterns aligned perfectly, too perfectly. This isn't just about creating conflict. It's about controlling evolution itself. Guide which genetic traits survive by eliminating the ones that promote cooperation between species. Selective pressure through manufactured crisis. Sarah agreed. Make the integrationists look dangerous, the isolationists look prophetic. Within a generation, maybe 2, the species that survive are the ones that learn to fear each other. The implications staggered him. This wasn't just about the Bond Accords or even the current political situation. This was about the fundamental future of interstellar civilization. His communicator chimed. Another message from their mysterious ally. Committee meeting moved up. 8 hours. Opposition mobilizing. Be ready. They're accelerating everything, Noah said. Why? Because we're close. Close enough to threaten their endgame. Sarah pulled up the financial data from Morrison's data cores. Look at this. Shell companies. Redirected funds. But all of it traces back to a handful of sources. Medical corporations, security contractors, and governmental black budgets from multiple species. It's not just one faction. It's a coalition of interests that benefit from division. Noah felt sick. Including people in our own governments. Which is why the committee meeting is so crucial. Public testimony, recorded and broadcast. Make it impossible to bury. She turned to him. But you know they won't let us get that far. Not without a fight. As if summoned by her words. The building's ancient security system activated. Doors sealed. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. And a computerized voice announced, Contamination lockdown initiated. All personnel remain in place. They found us, Noah said. No, they herded us. Sarah moved to the door, testing it. This is where they wanted us all along. Isolated, contained, with all our evidence in one place. The ventilation system hissed, and Noah's medical scanner screamed warnings. They're pumping something through the air system. Not the hunger virus. Something else. Sarah's eyes widened. Neural inhibitor. They're trying to knock us unconscious. She grabbed an emergency oxygen mask, tossing another to Noah. These won't last long. Long enough. He was already at the computer, uploading everything to multiple backup sites. If we're going down, we're taking their conspiracy with us. The upload crawled forward, each percentage point an eternity. Through the reinforced windows, they could see vehicles surrounding the building. Not security forces, this time unmarked. Professional. The kind of response that didn't officially exist. 60% uploaded, Noah reported. Come on, come on. The door exploded inward. Figures in full hazmat gear entered, weapons raised. Unlike the security team at the school, these operators moved with surgical precision. Step away from the computer, one ordered, voice mechanically distorted. This facility is under biosecurity quarantine. You will submit to decontamination procedures. 80%, Noah whispered. Sarah positioned herself between him and the operators. Under whose authority? Show me identification, official orders, anything that makes this legal. Legality is suspended in biosecurity events. Step aside, or be removed. 90%. The operators advanced. Sarah moved to intercept, but the neural inhibitor was affecting her. Her usual speed was halved, her reflexes dulled. The first operator she engaged easily deflected her attack, sending her crashing into a specimen cabinet. 95%. Noah felt hands grab him, pulling him away from the computer. He struggled, but his limbs felt like lead. The upload bar crept forward with agonizing slowness. 98%. A rifle butt struck the computer, shattering the screen. But the damage was done. The upload had completed. Their evidence scattered across secure servers, throughout the station's network, and beyond. Confirmed upload to 17 separate nodes. One operator reported. Should we pursue data scrubbing? Negative. Damage is done. Proceed with containment. They dragged Noah and Sarah from the lab, her still fighting despite the drugs in her system. As they were forced into an unmarked transport, Noah caught a glimpse of their destination on a navigation screen, not a detention facility, but the diplomatic quarter, the medical committee's emergency meeting location. They're not trying to stop us, he realized. They're delivering us. Sarah, struggling to maintain consciousness, managed to focus on him. What? Think about it. We show up at the committee meeting, clearly drugged, ranting about conspiracies. Who's going to believe us? We'll look like exactly what Kareth's been claiming, unstable elements, trying to sabotage the peace process. Unless... She fought to sit up. Unless we make it impossible to ignore. The upload worked. People will access the data. If they know to look for it. If they believe it's real and not fabricated. Noah's mind raced through possibilities. Medical training combining with newfound tactical thinking. We need authentication. Someone the committee can't dismiss. The transport was slowing. Through the hazmat operator's comms, he could hear coordination chatter. The committee meeting had indeed been moved up. It was starting in less than an hour. Key delegates were already gathering, including Dr. Mira Halden, his mentor, the woman who'd guided him toward this position, who'd encouraged his investigation into Emma's death. Would she support them or distance herself from the controversy? The transport stopped. They were in the diplomatic quarters medical wing, Noah realized. The operators handed them off to station security official this time, with proper procedures and documentation listing them as contamination risks requiring immediate evaluation. Smart, Sarah muttered, as they were escorted through familiar halls. Make it all look legitimate. Discredit us with procedure. They were placed in an isolation room with a clear wall facing the committee chamber. Through it, Noah could see delegates gathering humans, nocturni, representatives from dozens of species. Media drones hovered, ready to broadcast the proceedings. Dr. Halden was already there, consulting with other medical officials. She glanced toward the isolation room, and Noah caught something in her expression. Concern, calculation he couldn't tell. 20 minutes until the session starts, a guard informed them. You'll be called to testify once the contamination screening is complete. Which will find nothing because we're not actually contaminated, Sarah said. But by then, the narrative will be set. We'll be the unstable pair who broke into a condemned facility, exposed ourselves to unknown pathogens, and have to be handled carefully. Noah laughed bitterly. It's brilliant. Use the very procedures designed to protect people as weapons against the truth. Sarah moved to the clear wall, studying the gathering delegates. Not everyone out there is compromised. Some genuinely want peace, want answers. We need to reach them. How every word we say will be filtered through the lens of possible contamination affecting judgment. Unless an idea formed, desperate and probably insane. But sometimes insane was what the situation called for. The hunger virus, he said slowly. What if we could prove it's not naturally occurring, not with data or testimony, but with a live demonstration? Sarah turned sharply. That's suicide. If I voluntarily trigger the hunger. Not you. Me. He pulled out his medical scanner, began adjusting its settings. The virus works on Nocturni because it exploits existing biological systems. But those systems exist in nascent form in humans, two evolutionary remnants from when our species faced different survival pressures. If I can stimulate those dormant pathways. You want to give yourself the hunger, Noah. That's exactly what they won't expect. A human exhibiting Nocturni symptoms, proving the virus can cross species barriers, proving it's an engineered weapon, not a natural disease. She grabbed his hands. You don't know if it's reversible. You don't know if Inara's techniques will work on human physiology. I know that in 15 minutes, we'll be dismissed as contaminated conspiracists unless we do something dramatic. He met her eyes. I trust you to bring me back. The same way Inara brought back her students. The committee session was beginning. Dr. Halden took her position as medical advisory chair. High Prelate Kareth entered with his delegation, radiating smug satisfaction. The pieces were in place for their testimony to be buried under procedure and doubt. Do it, Sarah said quietly. But if you don't come back, if I can't reach you, I'll never forgive you for making me the monster who let it happen. Noah activated the modified scanner, pressing it against his neck. The device hummed, sending targeted electromagnetic pulses into specific neural regions. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world exploded into sensation. Every heartbeat in the room became thunder. Every breath was a symphony of chemical information. The delegates weren't just people anymore. They were walking collections of resources, their blood singing with possibilities. And beneath it all, a hunger that made his previous understanding of the word seem quaint. Noah, Sarah's voice, distant through the roar of need. He tried to answer, but what came out was closer to a growl. His hands pressed against the clear wall, and he watched with detached fascination as his nails lengthened slightly, as his teeth responded to the artificial evolutionary pressure. In the committee chamber, delegates were noticing gasps, pointed fingers, security moving to higher alert. Dr. Halden stood, her face pale with shock. What you're seeing, Sarah said loudly, her voice carrying to the media drones, is proof that the hunger virus isn't natural. It's a weapon designed to cross species barriers, to turn any of us into monsters. My partner just voluntarily infected himself to show you the truth. Kareth rose. This proves nothing except the human's instability. He's contaminated himself with our curse. Your curse, Sarah laughed harshly. Watch. She began to sing. Not just any song, but the lullaby of the first compact, the one Inara had used. But she modified it, weaving in harmonics she'd learned from the resonance, rhythms that spoke to human neurology as well as nocturne. Noah felt the song like cool water on burning skin. The hunger remained, but underneath it, his consciousness reasserted itself. He could think past the need, could recognize the delegates as people rather than prey. "This is what they fear," he managed to say, his voice rough but comprehensible. "Not that we're different, but that we're similar enough to save each other. The virus exploits our common evolution, but so does the cure." Dr. Halden had left her seat, approaching the clear wall. "Noah, what have you done? What needed doing?" He pressed his hand against the barrier between them. "Check the upload sites. Server 17 through 33. Everything we found. Everything they tried to bury. The conspiracy isn't theory, it's fact." Around the chamber, delegates were accessing the data on personal devices. Shock, outrage, and fear rippled through the crowd as they absorbed the evidence. Morrison's financial records, Anara's documentation, the connections between the riots that killed Emma and the current crisis. "This is fabrication," Kareth insisted. "Desperate lies from compromised individuals." "Then test me," Noah challenged. "Full medical scan, genetic analysis. Prove the virus isn't engineered. Prove it arose naturally. Because if you can't, then someone has been turning our peoples into weapons against each other." Dr. Halden was already pulling out her medical equipment. Other doctors joined her, representing multiple species. The committee session had transformed from a hearing into an impromptu medical investigation. As they worked, Sarah kept singing, her voice holding Noah anchored to himself. The hunger was still there, might always be there now, but it was manageable, controllable, not through suppression, but through connection. "Preliminary results," one of the doctors announced. "The viral structure shows clear signs of engineering, multiple redundancies, targeted delivery systems, adaptive response mechanisms. This is not natural evolution." Furthermore, another added, "The subject's human DNA is responding to nocturne treatment protocols. This should be impossible without common ancestry or artificial intervention." The committee chamber erupted. Delegates demanded answers, investigations, immediate action. Kareth tried to maintain control, but the tide had turned. The evidence was too compelling, the live demonstration too powerful to dismiss. Through it all, Noah kept his eyes on Dr. Halden. She was studying the data with the intensity of someone seeing their worldview shatter, or someone watching carefully laid plans unravel. 6 hours until the main conference," Sarah said quietly. "Think we shifted enough opinions?" "We planted the seeds," Noah replied, his voice still carrying traces of the hunger. "Now we see what grows." Security arrived to transfer them from isolation to medical treatment. As they were led away, Noah caught a final glimpse of the committee chamber. Chaos reigned, but it was productive chaos, the kind that preceded real change. The war for the future wasn't over. The puppet masters of the Crimson Lattice were still out there, still dangerous. But for the first time since Emma's death, Noah felt like they were fighting back effectively. Even if that fight had required becoming the very monster their enemies had tried to create. Chapter 4. The Harmony Summit. The medical wing's isolation chamber had become a war room. Noah sat with his eyes closed, fighting the hunger that still pulsed through his modified nervous system, while Sarah coordinated with their growing network of allies. The committee meeting had been a victory, but the real battle would be at the Harmony Conference in 4 hours. "Morrison just checked in," Sarah reported. "Security's been tripled around the conference hall. Official word is precautionary measures. But he says half the guards are private contractors. Lattice operatives." Noah opened his eyes, noting how Sarah's bioluminescence seemed brighter now, more detailed. The virus had changed his perception permanently. "Most likely, they're not trying to hide anymore." She pulled up a holographic display of the conference layout. "Look at these positioning patterns. They're not defending against external threats. their position to contain the delegates inside. Noah stood, still adjusting to the hypersensitivity of his altered state. Every movement felt too fast, too strong. They're going to trigger something during the conference, turn it into a massacre, blame it on the virus spreading, which technically it has. You're proof that humans can be infected now. She moved closer, studying his eyes. How are you managing? Your song helps, but it's like having a live wire running through my nervous system. Everything is more. He could hear her heartbeat, smell the concern beneath her tactical focus. I understand now why your people developed such strict social protocols. Without them, the hunger would destroy everything. And someone weaponized our greatest vulnerability. Her voice carried old pain. Made us into the monsters we spent millennia learning not to be. A knock interrupted them. Dr. Halden entered, her expression unreadable. She carried a medical case and a data pad showing Noah's latest test results. The viral integration is accelerating, she said, without preamble. Your human DNA is rewriting itself in real time, incorporating nocturne sequences. It shouldn't be possible. But it is, Noah replied. Because someone designed it to be. The question is, Doctor, how long have you known? Halden's composure cracked slightly. Known what? That the conspiracy was real. That the virus was engineered. You've been studying xenobiology for 30 years. You must have recognized the artificial markers the moment you saw them. Sarah tensed, ready for violence. But Noah held up a hand. He needed to understand. Needed to know if his mentor was enemy or ally. I suspected, Halden admitted finally. When the first cases appeared, the progression was too perfect, too targeted. But suspicion isn't proof, and the political situation was so delicate. So you stayed quiet while people died. Sarah's voice could have frozen helium. I tried to work within the system, guide investigations, position the right people like Noah to uncover the truth organically. Halden met Noah's altered eyes. Your sister was getting close. I tried to warn her, to slow her down until I could provide protection. But she was too much like you, too determined to wait for proper channels. The admission hit Noah like a physical blow. You knew Emma was in danger and did nothing. I did everything I thought I could without revealing how deep the conspiracy went. Tears traced down Halden's face. If I'd moved openly, they would have killed us both and buried the evidence forever. I thought I was being strategic. Strategic. Noah tasted the word like poison. My sister died for your strategy. Yes. Halden didn't flinch from the accusation. And I've lived with that guilt every day since. But her death also created you someone with the motivation and position to finish what she started. Someone they wouldn't suspect until it was too late. You used me, the hunger surged, and Noah felt Sarah's hand on his arm, grounding him. Used my grief. I guided you toward justice. There's a difference. Halden opened her medical case, revealing vials of luminescent fluid. This is a stabilizer. It won't cure the viral integration, but it will slow it, give you more control. Developed from Anara's research before she died. Why should we trust anything from you? Sarah demanded. Because in 3 hours, the Lattice will deploy aerosol dispensers throughout the conference hall. The hunger virus, weaponized for every species present. The stabilizer is the only thing that might give people a chance to resist. Halden set the case down. I've spent 3 years playing a role I despised, watching good people die, waiting for the moment to act. That moment is now. Noah studied his mentor, really studied her with his enhanced senses. Beneath the controlled exterior, he could smell fear, determination, and crushing regret. She was telling the truth, or at least her version of it. The architects of this conspiracy, he said slowly. You know who they are. Some, not all. It's not a single organization but a web of interests. Weapons manufacturers who need field tests. political hardliners who see integration as weakness, scientists who view ethics as obstacles to progress. She pulled up a secured file. But there's one person who connects them all. Someone who's been coordinating the various factions, playing them against each other while pursuing their own agenda. The image that appeared made Noah's blood run cold. It was Halden herself, but younger, standing next to a figure he didn't recognize in a laboratory setting. "My former research partner," Halden explained. "Dr. Garrett Voss. Brilliant, charismatic, and completely immoral. He believes humanity, all sapient species, are on the verge of forced evolution. That conflict is necessary to drive genetic adaptation." "Social Darwinism taken to its extreme," Sarah said with disgust. "Worse. He doesn't just want to observe evolution, he wants to control it. The hunger virus is just the beginning. He has samples from every species at the conference. Decades of genetic data." Halden's voice dropped. "If his plan succeeds today, he'll have proven that artificial selection through engineered conflict works. The survivors will be those he deems worthy of continuation." "Where is he?" Noah asked, already knowing the answer. "He'll be at the conference, observing his experiment firsthand. He always did prefer direct observation to remote monitoring." A commotion outside interrupted them. Through the observation window, they could see delegates streaming past, heading for the main conference hall. Among them, Noah spotted Kareth, surrounded by his conservative faction, still preaching isolation despite the morning's revelations. "We need to move," Sarah said. "If they're planning to release the virus during the opening ceremony—" "Wait." Noah grabbed the stabilizer vials, his mind racing. "We're thinking about this wrong. They expect us to try to stop the release, to focus on preventing the attack. What if we let it happen?" Both women stared at him. "Have you lost your mind?" Sarah asked. "Listen, the virus triggers uncontrolled hunger, turns people into monsters. But Inara proved it could be managed through connection, through the old songs. I'm living proof that the virus can be integrated without losing humanity." He held up the stabilizer. "What if, instead of preventing the attack, we prepare people to survive it? Turn their weapon into a vaccination," Halden breathed. "Force evolution, but on our terms, not his." "It's insane," Sarah said. "We'd be asking hundreds of delegates to trust us, to voluntarily accept partial infection, as opposed to being ambushed by it," Noah countered. "At least this way, they have a choice. And when they survive, when they help each other through the hunger, instead of turning on each other, it proves everything the Lattice believes is wrong." The medical wing's communication system crackled to life. "All delegates report to the main conference hall. Opening ceremony begins in 30 minutes. "Not much time to organize a revolution," Sarah noted. "Then we'd better move fast." Noah loaded the stabilizer into injection pens. "Doctor, I need you to access the medical emergency broadcast system. When the attack begins, people need to know there's hope." "What about Voss?" Halden asked. "Leave him to us," Sarah said, checking her weapons. "He wants to observe his experiment. Let him watch it fail." They moved through the station's corridors with purpose. Noah fighting to keep the hunger contained, while his enhanced senses cataloged every potential threat. The virus had made him dangerous, but also perceptive in ways he was still discovering. The main conference hall was a masterpiece of multi-species architecture, its dome ceiling adjusting light wavelengths to accommodate every visual system. Delegates from 47 civilizations filled the amphitheater seating, their universal translators creating a symphony of overlapping languages. "Security positions," Sarah murmured, her trained eye identifying threats. Morrison was right. They're positioned for containment, not protection. Noah scanned the crowd, looking for their allies. Morrison himself was near the human delegation, having traded his mercenary gear for a borrowed diplomatic uniform. Several of Inara's surviving students were scattered throughout, wearing biomonitors that would alert them when the virus was released. Even some of Kareth's moderate supporters had positioned themselves strategically. "There," Sarah pointed to an observation deck above the main floor. Perfect vantage point for someone who wants to watch without being affected. A figure stood there, partially obscured by shadow. Even at distance, Noah could sense something wrong about him, a void where empathy should be, brilliance without wisdom. "Dr. Garrett Voss, I presume," he murmured. The opening ceremony began with the traditional unity bell, its tone calibrated to resonate across species. The current council president, an elderly resident, whose crystalline form chimed with each word, began the formal welcome. "We gather in hope," she intoned, "to forge bonds that transcend our differences, to build a future where diversity is strength, not division." Noah felt the irony like a knife. In minutes, that hope would be tested in ways no one expected. His enhanced senses detected at first a change in air pressure, the subtle hiss of hidden vents activating. The virus was being released, invisible and insidious. "Now," he whispered to Sarah. She moved through the crowd like liquid shadow, reaching their positioned allies, one by one. They began self-administering the stabilizer, preparing their systems for what was coming. Some delegates noticed, confused by the sudden medical activity. "What is the meaning of this?" Kareth demanded, standing from his seat. "This is disruption of sacred proceedings." "This is survival," Noah announced, stepping into the central speaking circle. His voice carried without amplification, the virus having enhanced his vocal cords along with everything else. "In approximately 90 seconds, every being in this hall will be exposed to the weaponized hunger virus. You can panic, you can flee, or you can listen." The reaction was immediate shouts, denials, security moving to intervene. But Sarah and their allies formed a protective circle, buying him time to speak. "The virus is already in the air. You're breathing it now. In moments, you'll feel the hunger overwhelming, undeniable, designed to turn us against each other." He held up a stabilizer pen. "But we have a choice. We can face this together. Use our connections to maintain control. Prove that unity is stronger than engineered division." "Lies!" Kareth snarled, but his protest was cut short as the first wave hit. Noah felt it like a tide of fire through his nerves. Around the hall, delegates began showing symptoms, nocturne eyes flaring red, humans developing subtle fang-like protrusions, other species manifesting their own variations of predatory enhancement. "Sing," Noah commanded, his voice carrying despite the growing chaos. "Those who know the old songs, sing them, share them. The hunger feeds on isolation but withers before connection." Anara's students began first, their voices rising with the lullaby of the first compact. The resonance joined, adding harmonics that stabilized the neural fluctuations. Even some humans, following Noah's example, hummed melodies that seemed to calm the viral storm. But not everyone listened. Some delegates, overwhelmed by fear and hunger, lashed out. Security forces, themselves affected, struggled to maintain order as their own control wavered. Through it all, Noah kept his eyes on Voss. The man was documenting everything, his expression fascinated rather than horrified. This was his experiment, his proof of concept, and he was watching it with the detachment of a scientist observing bacteria. "Sarah," Noah called. "It's time!" She understood immediately, leaving the crowd management to their allies. Together, they pushed through the chaos toward the observation deck. The hunger made movement strange, too fast, too fluid, bodies operating beyond human normal. They reached the deck to find Voss waiting, an energy weapon trained on them. "Fascinating," he said, voice cultured and cold. "You've turned my weapon into a tool for integration. Unexpected, but not unwelcome. Evolution through adversity. Even manufactured adversity." "People are dying," Noah growled, the hunger making his voice rough. "People are transforming," Voss corrected. "Those who survive will be stronger, more adaptable. Natural selection accelerated." "There's nothing natural about this," Sarah spat. You're playing God with entire species. Someone has to. Do you think peace comes from committees and treaties? True peace comes from fundamental change, from becoming something new together. He gestured at the chaos below. Look at them, human and nocturni sharing songs, resonance harmonizing with mechanists. The virus isn't dividing them, it's forcing them to evolve past their limitations. By taking away their choice, Noah stepped closer, ignoring the weapon. By making them monsters. By revealing what they always were beneath the civilized veneer. The hunger exists in every species, just dormant. I simply activated it. Voss's eyes gleamed. Your sister understood that. She got too close to the truth. Yes, but she saw the bigger picture. Progress requires sacrifice. The mention of Emma shattered Noah's control. He lunged, faster than human reflexes should allow. The weapon fired, but Sarah was already moving, deflecting Voss's aim. The shot went wide, shattering a window. Then they were grappling. Enhanced strength, meeting desperate brilliance. Voss was unmodified, purely human. But he'd planned for this. Hidden injectors in his clothes pumped stimulants into his system, temporarily matching their speed. You think you're saving them, Voss gasped as they fought. You're damning them to stagnation, peace through committee, progress through paperwork. I offer evolution. You offer extinction, Sarah snarled, joining the fight. Below, the conference hall was transforming. The initial chaos was giving way to something unprecedented. Delegates who should be tearing each other apart were instead forming protective circles, sharing stabilizer doses, singing songs from a dozen cultures that somehow harmonized. Beautiful, Voss breathed, even as Noah's hands found his throat. They're becoming something new, together. Not because of you, Noah realized. In spite of you. You created the crisis, but they're creating the solution. Voss laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Does it matter? The result is the same. Evolution through shared adversity. The weak fall, the strong adapt, and those who adapt together survive. Your bond accords could never have achieved this. Security forces finally reached the observation deck, but they hesitated, unsure who to restrain. Below, Dr. Halden's voice echoed through the emergency broadcast system, guiding delegates through the viral integration process. It's over, Voss, Sarah said. Your experiment failed. They're not turning on each other. Failed. His smile was terrible. This is exactly what I hoped for. Forced evolution creating new bonds between species. The virus was never about division. It was about pressure. Enough pressure to create diamonds from carbon. Noah's grip tightened, the hunger whispering that it would be easy to end this threat permanently. One squeeze, one moment of letting the virus take control. No. He released Voss, stepping back. You don't get to make me your proof. We choose to be better, not because we're forced, but because we decide to be. Voss collapsed, his stimulants wearing off. Sentiment. You'll understand eventually. When the next crisis comes, when unity isn't enough, you'll remember that I showed you how to evolve. Security took him, and Noah hoped never to see that terrible certainty again. But the words lingered, poison in the triumph. The conference hall was stabilizing. Delegates helped each other through the viral integration, fear giving way to wonder as they discovered new connections. The hunger remained, would always remain now. But it was managed through community, rather than isolation. We did it, Sarah said softly. We actually did it. No, Noah corrected. Watching humans and nocturni share blood voluntarily, safely, creating bonds that no treaty could have forged. They did it. We just gave them the chance. Dr. Halden approached, her face showing the strain of the day. Voss is in custody. The lattice network is being dismantled. But he's right about one thing: this changes everything. Every person here is now living proof that the species barrier isn't absolute. Is that bad? Noah asked. That depends on what we do with the knowledge. She looked at the integrated delegates, already discussing how to help others through the transition. Your sister would be proud. You found a way to turn their weapon into a bridge. The hunger still burned in Noah's veins, would always burn now. But as Sarah's hand found his, as voices rose in multilingual harmony throughout the hall, he understood that some prices were worth paying. The bond accords will need to be rewritten, Sarah observed. Partnership means something different now. Everything means something different now, Noah agreed. They stood together, watching as 47 species began the hard work of building a future that none of them had imagined that morning. It wasn't the peace they'd planned for, wasn't the careful diplomatic solution everyone had expected. It was messier, it was painful, it was real. And somewhere, in the harmony of voices, rising from the conference floor, Noah could almost hear Emma's approval. The truth hadn't set them free. It had transformed them into something new. The Harmony Conference would go down in history, but not for the reasons anyone expected. It would be remembered as the day diversity became not just accepted, but essential. The day every species learned they carried the potential for every other within their genes. The puppet masters had pulled their strings, but in the end, the puppets had chosen to dance together rather than fight. Chapter 5. The New Compact. The aftermath of the Harmony Conference stretched through the night cycle of Penumbral Spire. Noah stood in the makeshift medical center they'd established in the conference hall, monitoring the vital signs of delegates still adjusting to their viral integration. The hunger was a constant presence now, but it had become something almost meditative, a reminder of connection rather than division. 47 species, 312 delegates, and only 6 casualties, Dr. Halden reported, her voice carrying exhaustion and a hint of amazement. By any metric, that's a miracle. Tell that to the families of the 6, Noah replied, adjusting the treatment protocol for a resident delegate whose crystalline structure was struggling to harmonize with the viral changes. Sarah approached from the communication station, her movement still predatory, but now consciously controlled. The outer systems are responding, some with fear, some with hope. The Centauri Coalition wants to know if we can synthesize the stabilizer for mass distribution. Distribution of a controlled virus, Noah mused. 6 months ago, I would have called that bioterrorism. Now it's evolution, Halden finished. Voluntary evolution, but evolution nonetheless. Through the transparent walls of the medical center, they could see the main conference floor, where an unprecedented scene was unfolding. Delegates who hours ago had been segregated by species now worked in integrated groups, drafting new accords that reflected their transformed reality. High Prelate Kareth is demanding to speak with you, Sarah informed Noah. Both of us, actually. Noah sighed. The Nocturni religious leader had survived the viral exposure, but his rigid worldview had shattered along with his certainties. Where is he? Meditation chamber. He's different. They found Kareth sitting in the dimly lit chamber, his ancient features drawn with contemplation. The fanatic fire in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by something Noah's enhanced senses identified as profound confusion. You destroyed everything, Kareth said without looking up. Centuries of tradition, of separation that kept us pure, gone in a single day. We survived, Sarah countered. Your people, my people, all people. Isn't that what matters? Kareth finally raised his eyes, and Noah saw the depth of his struggle. I felt it. During the integration, human thoughts in my mind, resonant harmonies in my blood. We are contaminated. We're connected, Noah corrected gently. The virus doesn't make us the same. It just reveals what we share. And what of our children? What of generations to come who will never know the purity of singular heritage? Kareth's voice cracked. You've made us all mongrels. Sarah moved forward, kneeling to meet the older nocturni at eye level. My mother died believing in purity. She died alone, having denied herself love because it came from the wrong species. Is that the legacy you want? I don't know what I want anymore, Kareth admitted. Everything I believed, everything I taught, the virus strips it away, forces us to see others not as threats, but as family, Noah supplied. Distant cousins, maybe, but family nonetheless. The virus activates dormant genetic sequences that prove we share common ancestry, however remote. Kareth shuddered. Then we are all fallen, all corrupted from some original form. Or all elevated, Sarah suggested. All given a chance to become more than our isolated selves. The old prelate closed his eyes. I need time. Time to reconcile what I know with what I now feel. Grant me that, at least. They left him to his contemplation, returning to find the medical center in controlled chaos. Morrison had arrived with a group of former Lattice operatives who'd surrendered, seeking integration rather than imprisonment. They have information, Morrison explained. Hidden facilities, backup plans, sleeper agents. The Lattice network is deeper than we thought. Of course it is, Noah muttered. One conspiracy exposed. 3 more waiting in the shadows. But even as he spoke, something nagged at him. The integration process was proceeding too smoothly, the various species adapting too quickly. His medical training screamed that biological changes of this magnitude should take weeks, not hours. Sarah, he said quietly, pulling her aside. Run a deep scan on the stabilizer compound. Full molecular breakdown. Her eyes sharpened. You suspect something? I suspect we're missing a piece. Dr. Halden's stabilizer works too well, integrates too perfectly, almost like it was designed for this specific virus from the beginning. Sarah finished, her expression darkening. They moved to the analysis station, Noah's enhanced senses, and Sarah's investigative instincts working in tandem. The molecular structure of the stabilizer unfolded before them, complex and elegant, and absolutely impossible to have been developed in the few hours since Inara's research became available. This is years of work, Noah breathed. Maybe decades. Someone knew exactly what the virus would do and prepared a counter-agent in advance. But who and why release both? Sarah's bioluminescence flickered with agitation. Unless. The revelation hit them simultaneously. They turned to find Dr. Halden watching from across the medical center. Her expression sad, but unsurprised. You knew we'd figure it out eventually, she said, approaching slowly. Your sister would have given time. She always saw patterns others missed. You didn't just know about the conspiracy, Noah said, his voice deadly quiet. You were part of it, from the beginning. Part of it, yes. But not in the way you think. Halden gestured to the integrated delegates around them. This was always the goal. Not division, but synthesis. Not war, but forced peace through shared experience. The riots, Noah's hands clenched. Emma's death, all of it planned. Anticipated, not planned. We knew there would be resistance, violence, casualties. Evolution is never painless. Halden's composure finally cracked. I tried to protect Emma, to keep her away from the danger zones. But she was too brave, too determined to expose what she thought was evil. What she thought was evil. Sarah stepped between them, protective instinct flaring. You killed dozens, hundreds, all for this moment. To prevent millions from dying in the wars that were coming? Halden pulled up classified projections on her datapad. Every model showed the same result. Without intervention, the species would have destroyed each other within a generation. Fear, resource competition, fundamental biological incompatibilities. The bond accords were a bandage on a severed artery. Noah stared at the projections, his enhanced mind processing the data faster than his human emotions could accept it. The models were comprehensive, terrifyingly accurate in their predictions. Without forced integration, the galaxy would have burned. "So you created a crisis to prevent a worse crisis," he said hollowly. "Made us all monsters to stop us from becoming worse monsters." "Made you all family," Halden corrected. "Gave you shared struggle, shared solution, shared future." The virus was never the real weapon, it was the catalyst. The stabilizer doesn't fight the virus. It completes it, creates permanent but manageable integration. "Garrett Voss," Sarah said suddenly. He spoke like he knew this would happen, like the chaos was just a step toward something else. Halden nodded. Garrett was the architect of the viral component. Brilliant, amoral, but ultimately correct in his assessment. I developed the stabilizer, the integration protocol. We were partners until he became too enamored with the suffering part of the process. You let him terrorize entire populations. Noah's control slipped, the hunger flaring. Let him turn my sister's death into an experiment. I let him play his role while I played mine. The visible villain and the hidden savior. Classic psychological manipulation create a threat so severe that any solution seems acceptable. She met Noah's eyes. Even integration with your deepest fears. The medical center had gone quiet. Delegates and staff listening to the confession. Some looked horrified, others thoughtful. Still others relieved to finally understand the full scope of what had happened to them. "You had no right," Morrison said, speaking for many. "No right to choose for all of us." "No," Halden agreed. "But I had the ability and the will. History will judge whether that was enough." Noah felt Sarah's hand on his arm, grounding him as the hunger threatened to overwhelm his control. The urge to punish Halden, to make her pay for Emma's death and all the others, burned as hot as the viral integration itself. "The committee needs to know," Sarah said. "The delegates deserve the full truth." "They do," Halden agreed. "I've prepared a complete confession, all documentation, all evidence. The choice of what to do with me is yours." She turned to leave, then paused. "Noah, your sister's final article, the one that was never published. I have it. She'd finished it the night before she died, sent it to me for safekeeping. Would you like to read it?" The offer was a knife between his ribs. "Why didn't you?" "Because it would have started a war. She'd uncovered enough to cause panic, but not enough to provide solutions. Publishing would have triggered exactly the violence we were trying to prevent." Halden pulled out a secure data chip. "But you deserve to see it, to know that her work mattered, even if the world wasn't ready for it." She left the chip on the table and walked away, not fleeing, but simply granting them space to process. Around them, the integrated delegates continued their work, building something new from the ruins of their old certainties. "What do we do?" Sarah asked quietly. Noah picked up the chip, feeling its weight despite its negligible mass. "We tell the truth, all of it. Let people decide for themselves whether the ends justified the means." And Halden, "Justice, not revenge. A public trial, full transparency. Let her defend her choices to those whose lives she changed." He looked around the medical center. "But first, we finish what we started. These people need guidance, support. The integration is just beginning." They spent the next hours coordinating treatment, documenting experiences, and preparing for the revelations to come. The virus had changed them all, but the real transformation was in how they chose to handle that change. As the night cycle deepened, Noah finally found time to read Emma's final article. Sarah sat with him, sharing the burden of lost possibilities. Emma had been so close. She'd identified the research facilities, traced the funding streams, even suspected the dual nature of the program. But her focus had been on exposing the conspiracy, not understanding its purpose. She'd seen the trees, but missed the forest. She would have hated this, Noah said. The manipulation, the forced choices. She believed in free will above all else. But would she have hated the result? Sarah asked gently. Look around. Species that feared each other now share blood and breath. The integration is traumatic, but it's also miraculous. Through the transparent walls, they could see the main conference floor where delegates worked through the night. The new accords they were drafting went far beyond the original bond accords. These were documents written by beings who truly understood each other at a cellular level. Incoming transmission, Morrison announced. It's being broadcast on all channels. The main screen activated, showing Dr. Halden in what appeared to be a detention cell. But she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a figure Noah recognized from the archived footage, her former partner. But not Garrett Voss. This was someone else. Someone who'd been hidden even deeper in the conspiracy. Citizens of all worlds, Halden began. By now, you know of the viral integration, the forced evolution that has begun at the Harmony Conference. You deserve to know that this was not an accident or attack, but a carefully orchestrated intervention decades in the making. The figure beside her stepped forward, and Noah's enhanced vision caught details that made his blood run cold. Human features, but wrong. Too perfect, too symmetrical. As if someone had tried to design the ideal human form and missed the subtle imperfections that made people real. I am Dr. Adrian Kane, the figure said. I represent the Synthesis Collective beings who underwent integration voluntarily years ago. We have lived among you, guided you, prepared you for this moment. Sleeper agents, Sarah breathed. Integrated beings hidden in every government, every organization. Caney continued. The choice was never whether to evolve, but how. Naturally, through centuries of conflict and loss, or deliberately, through shared transformation. We chose the latter, chose to save you from yourselves. The arrogance, someone in the medical center muttered. Perhaps, Caney acknowledged, as if he could hear. But observe the results. In one day, you've achieved more genuine unity than decades of diplomacy produced. The virus is not a weapon, but a gift. The hunger you fear is just evolution's way of showing you what you need from each other. Halden took over again. The Synthesis Collective will reveal itself fully in the coming days. Doctors, teachers, leaders who chose integration early and have been working to prepare society. We are not your enemies. We are your future, showing you the way. The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Then the debates began angry, fearful, but also curious. Some delegates demanded immediate action against the collective. Others wanted to understand more. Still others questioned whether opposition even made sense now that integration was spreading. It's bigger than we imagined, Noah said. This isn't just about the lattice or even the conspiracy. There's an entire civilization of integrated beings that's been shaping events. Hidden evolution, Sarah added. They changed themselves first, then decided to change everyone else. A new message appeared on Noah's personal communicator, text only, from an unlisted source. Your sister was one of us. The riot was meant to recruit her, not kill her. The violence was never intended. I'm sorry. A.K. The words hit like physical blows. Emma, infected, recruited. The narrative he'd built around her death crumbled, replaced by terrible possibilities. Noah, Sarah's concern was palpable. He showed her the message. Her expression hardened. Lies, manipulation. They're trying to break you. Or telling the truth. The riot, the delayed security. Emma being in exactly the wrong place at the wrong time. What if she was supposed to be infected, not killed? What if they were trying to make her like us? Then they failed, Sarah said firmly. And she died free, making her own choices. That matters. Through his enhanced senses, Noah could feel the station coming alive with new purpose. The revelation of the Synthesis Collective had transformed confusion into direction. If integrated beings had been living successfully among them, then perhaps the transformation wasn't something to fear but to embrace. "We need to address this," he said, "before panic sets in or people make irreversible decisions." They returned to the main conference floor, where heated debates were already underway. Some delegates called for immediate quarantine of anyone showing integration symptoms. Others demanded the location of all collective members. A few were already volunteering for accelerated integration. Noah took the speaking circle, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes, human, nocturne, and everything in between. "I lost my sister to this conspiracy," he began. "Just learned she might have been targeted for recruitment, not death. I have every reason to hate the collective, to demand revenge." He paused, meeting Sarah's supportive gaze. "But hate won't bring her back, and revenge won't help us navigate what comes next." He pulled up the data they'd compiled. "The integration is real. The changes are permanent. We can spend our energy fighting shadows or building something from what we've become. The collective manipulated us, yes, but they also showed us possibilities we never imagined." "You're defending them." Kareth stood, his transformation evident in every movement. "These puppet masters who stole our choice. I'm acknowledging reality. They exist. They're integrated. They're probably in this room right now." Noah let his enhanced senses sweep the crowd, noting subtle indicators of long-term integration. "The question isn't whether to accept what happened, but how to move forward." A young human delegate stood. "I want to meet one. A collective member. If they've been living integrated for years, I want to understand how." Others voiced similar curiosity. Fear was giving way to pragmatism if integration was inevitable. Better to learn from those who'd already walked that path. "I can arrange that," a familiar voice said. Everyone turned to see Morrison stepping forward, and Noah's enhanced senses immediately recognized what he'd missed before. The perfect balance. The subtle biological harmony that came from years of integration. Sarah's hand moved to her weapon. Morrison, or whoever he really was, raised his hands peacefully. 5 years ago, I volunteered for early integration, lived as human, worked as human, but always knowing what was coming. My job was to monitor, report, and ultimately to help when the time came. You fought beside us," Sarah accused. "Helped us expose the lattice." "Because the lattice was corrupted. They'd lost sight of the goal, become enamored with control rather than evolution." He met their eyes steadily. "I chose my side when I stood with those children against my supposed allies. Integration doesn't remove free will, it enhances it." The conference floor erupted in questions, accusations, and demands. But through it all, Noah noticed something crucial: no violence. Despite the revelations, despite the fear and anger, the integrated delegates weren't attacking each other. The shared hunger created empathy rather than aggression. "This is what they wanted," he said to Sarah. "Not just biological integration, but social proof that it works. Every peaceful moment, every collaborative decision validates their approach." "Manipulation through positive reinforcement," she agreed. "Show the benefits, minimize the costs, make resistance seem foolish rather than principled." But even recognizing the manipulation, Noah couldn't deny the results. Around them, species that had barely tolerated each other were now working as one. The virus had forced proximity, but genuine connection was emerging from that forced start. His communicator chimed. "Another message from A.K. The memorial service for failed recruitments is tomorrow. Eden Memorial Garden, noon cycle. Your sister is remembered among our greatest losses. You're welcome to attend." The audacity staggered him. They'd killed Emma accidentally or not, and now offered condolences as if they were fellow mourners rather than architects of her death. "I'm going," he decided. Sarah's bioluminescence flared. "It's a trap." "Probably. But I need to know. Need to understand who these people are beyond their grand plans and social engineering. He touched the chip containing Emma's article. She died investigating them. The least I can do is continue her work. The night cycle was ending. The conference entering its second day, under radically different circumstances than anyone had imagined. Delegates were forming new working groups, drafting integration protocols, planning for a future none of them had chosen, but all of them had to face. We'll need new terms, someone suggested. The Bond Accords assumed separate species forming alliances. What do we call ourselves now? The Synthesis Accords, Kareth suggested. His transformation from opponent to participant nearly complete. If we must be combined, let us at least name ourselves honestly. As dawn broke over the eternal twilight of Penumbral Spire, a metaphor too obvious to ignore, Noah realized the conspiracy's true genius. They hadn't just changed biology. They'd created a situation where opposing the change meant opposing unity itself. Clever, he admitted to Sarah. Make resistance synonymous with regression. Frame acceptance as evolution. Even knowing it's manipulation, the logic is hard to refute. The best traps are the ones that remain effective even after they're revealed, she agreed. But there's something else. Something about this whole situation that doesn't fit. What do you mean? She pulled up the viral analysis again. The integration works too well. Not just the stabilizer, but the virus itself. It adapts to every species, finds exactly the right genetic sequences to activate. That's not just advanced science, that's impossible science. Unless they had help, Noah finished. Unless someone with intimate knowledge of every species' genome designed this. They looked at each other. The same terrible possibility occurring to both. What if the Synthesis Collective wasn't the top of the conspiracy? What if they were just another layer, themselves manipulated by something even more complex? One mystery at a time, Sarah said finally. First we survive today, then we dig deeper. The memorial garden called. The collective waited. And somewhere in the careful orchestration of forced evolution, Noah sensed a pattern. Even Emma might have missed a design too perfect to be human, too compassionate to be purely alien. The integration was just beginning, and already he wondered who was really pulling the strings.